My name is Uwitonze Thérése, clinical psychologist and psychotherapist. I'm working in Mental Health Dignity Foundation, located in Rwanda, Southern Province. And I'm registered as a clinical psychology specialist. Thank you for this opportunity, for sharing with you about Mental Health Dignity Foundation clinical work. I can start by talking about or thinking about as human being. We have all, as human being, we have brains, and our brains help us to think, help us to experience emotions, body reaction, and behaviors as human being in general. And because you ask us to think about or to share with you about our therapeutic work with survivors of genocide against Tutsi here in Rwanda, we think about the consequences of genocide against Tutsi here in Rwanda, which affected the brain of survivors of affected Rwandan in general, because people who observed, who witnessed genocide against Tutsi as a traumatic event during genocide affected them. But especially here, we are talking about survivors of genocide. They are affected by those traumatic experience they experienced during genocide. For example, observing or witness killing of their parent, witness killing of a person, rape, experiencing rape, seeing cadavers, and so on. Those are the traumatic experience, traumatic event survivors of genocide experienced, and those events affected them. That's why currently, after 30 years ago, they are continuing to experiencing emotional crises via different signs. For example, nightmares, the experiencing now insomnia, because now I'm sharing the concrete examples of psychological suffering from my client I receive day by day at MHDF. And they are affected in different ways. Their body are affected, their thought, their cognitions are affected, their behavior were affected by traumatic experience related to genocide. That's why we are here as a clinical psychologist in the Mental Health Dignity Foundation to support them to recover, to overcome the consequences of genocide which affected them in the cognition, the emotions, body, and in behavior. Yes.
Perhaps before you continue, Thérése, perhaps we should also remind our audience the dimension of violence during the genocide. So perhaps only for those who are not aware that within 3 months, almost 1 million person was killed, mainly with machetes or other weapons that were given by the Rwandan army at that time, Hutu-led army, so that the population, the Hutu-led population, systematically killed Tutsi everywhere in Rwanda. And so that is the dimension we never experienced in that world since the Holocaust. So just to keep that in mind for those who live.
Thank you. Yes, I'm continuing to share with you about MHDF clinical work, where we receive as a clinical psychologist in MHDF, we receive survivors of genocide against Tutsi, yes, and other clients in order to help them to overcome the consequences of traumatic experience, traumatic event they experienced during the genocide. And those traumatic experience affected them, as I told you, in the cognition. They thought, sometimes they have a negative thought, and they're experiencing negative emotions, like, for example, being ashamed, guilt, sadness, anger, yes, different kind of negative emotions related to what they experienced. And their body are affected. Among my clients, we have these examples of the effect of traumatic event in the body of a client, where we receive client with headache. They suffer from headache. They suffer from they suffer from dizziness. They suffer from trembling, heart attack, nausea, and so on. Different physical symptoms, which shows how traumatic event affected them in their body. Yes, and we help them also to overcome negative behaviors related to what they experienced, where some of them, they can use psychological violence. They use bad word uh, during the relationship or conversation with others. They insult people. They have irresponsibility at workplace. They have they can experience the same, they can do the same, they violate physically. Sometimes we can observe also those clients who can commit other violence against neighbor, against family members, as a consequences of what they experienced during genocide. And among my clients, yes, the client I receive, we have a big number of clients I receive individually. I have 158 single clients. Among them, there is a survivor of genocide, and they suffer from three kinds of trauma and its consequences: post-traumatic stress disorder, like primary trauma. Yes, client experience themselves the traumatic event. Or I receive also my colleague who receive survivors, and they are affected by those trauma material they receive, and they suffer from vicarious trauma, secondary trauma. And I have also children from survivors of genocide. They suffer from transgenerational trauma. Yes, for helping them, we use different methods, different techniques. First of all, we use psychoeducation to give information to survivors of genocide against Tutsi for understanding the consequences of traumatic event they experienced, and also to learn more how to help themselves. Yes, we explain them what is health, what is mental health, what are the root causes of mental disorders, what are the signs or symptoms of mental disorders, how to help people who suffer from mental illness, and what are the key behaviors of clinical psychologists or psychotherapists who accompany them psychologically. And we talk about their rights and responsibility during the journey of healing, because they must contribute to their healing. And our vision the objective is to contribute to mental well-being for all Rwandan, for all human being. Because what we observed, yes, genocide against Tutsi committed here in Rwanda has different consequences on survivors, on children born after genocide, next generation, and on the neighbor, and so on, is affecting many people. And because the life on after genocide, we need to continue to live together to promote our relationship. Instead of being an unhelpful relationship, we improve it become helpful relationship, because genocide against Tutsi destroyed the relationship between people, destroyed social values of human being, starting by Rwandan among them, and not only among Rwandan, it affected other people, neighbor from other countries. That's why our objective is for contributing to improve mental health well-being, where survivors of genocide against Tutsi, they can contribute to their mental well-being, they can realize their potential, they can learn how to overcome normal stress of life, and work for their contribution, for work for their community. They can contribute to their personal development, family development, and the community development. Yes, this is our objective, to promote mental well-being for all among those people, that is survivors of genocide against Tutsi. Yes, when we are helping them, we started by giving them that information, as we do the same in the community to inform all Rwandan to be aware about their mental health, taking care of themselves. And we use also other technique of accompanying individual case, individual single person. We offer them psychotherapy after recognizing or doing together trauma map. We identify those different traumatic experience, and in collaboration with them, we can support them individually, and we support also survivors of genocide against Tutsi in a group, and we use different technique when I accompany individual case. I use, for example, narrative exposure therapy. I use EMDR. I use nonviolent communication, because after genocide against Tutsi, we are experiencing other kind of violence, psychological violence. Instead of using those machetes to kill people, the people they use bad words, they violate, they use insult, and those also contribute to increase, to traumatize, to continue to increase psychological suffering among our client, and especially among survivors of genocide against Tutsi. Other technique we use in Mental Health Dignity Foundation, we use also relaxation exercise. We learn client individually or in a group how they can contribute to their healing, how they can heal themselves, how they can take care of themselves. We learn them different techniques. For example, the technique of how to heal lack of concentration, how to heal, how to treat insomnia, how to treat nightmares, how to treat different flashback, using, for example, safe box, using deep briefing work, exercise, and we learn clients to how they can take care of themselves. And we teach them We practice together during therapeutic session. We practice those relaxation exercise, and we give homework to continue to do the same exercise at home, because yes, they have responsibility to contribute to their mental well-being, to their healing process. And after doing doing psychoeducation, psychotherapy, and different individual therapy, we can also conduct evaluation for seeing, comparing how client came in the beginning and how now at the end of psychotherapy he is or she is, and seeing, evaluating together, and experiencing, and yes, we share those achievements from sickness to wellness, because the journey of healing helped them to transform their state from sickness to wellness. Yes, and other technique we use, we mediate parties who are in a conflict. For example, the case of survivors and perpetrators, we know, and you know, here in Rwanda after genocide against Tutsi, yes, genocide happened, people died, but there is survivors. We have survivors. Survivors live together with perpetrators in the same village, and sometimes they experience conflict. And as a clinical psychologist and psychotherapist, I receive them. They ask for support. I receive them and I accompany them for overcoming and managing their conflict at the village level, or they can come to my office. I accompany them in the journey of managing their conflict. Yes, those are the techniques we use for helping survivors of genocide against Tutsi, and in collaboration with their family members and neighbors, because genocide affected the people at different levels. It depends. During individual therapy, we plan together with client. Yes, different steps we will try to work on in order to overcome and to promote her or his mental well-being. And I think it's very good also to share concretely the prevalence of the case we are supporting in MHDF. The client we receive, they are, we have adult, we have the young people, we have aged people, we have survivors, we receive perpetrators, we receive their offsprings, and because they are all affected. But now we have 158 clients I receive individually, and I have groups, and yes, but the single client I receive, they suffer from different mental disorders, like post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, antisocial behaviors, traumatic grief, drug abuse, suicidal ideation, suicidal thought, and the prevalence I have regarding considering my client, a biggest number of single client we receive at MHDF, they suffer from anxiety at 91%. And the following mental disorder is a post-traumatic stress disorder. They suffer from, they are at the level of 73%. And clients who suffer from depression, they are at 50. Yes, clients who suffer from depression, who suffer from PTSD, they are at 80%. And the clients who suffer from depression, they are at 73%. And the client individual case or single client, they are at 56%. Individual case who suffer from drug abuse, they are at 17%. And single client who suffer from suicidal ideation, they are at 50%. And about antisocial behavior, we have the three aspects of antisocial behaviors. The first is boldness, the second is meanness, the third is disinhibition. Yes, many of our individual clients I have at MHDF, they suffer from disinhibition. They are at 42%, where disinhibition is characterized by those signs: irresponsibility, hostility, anger, and so on. But for boldness, they are at 37%. And meanness, they are at 12%. When we talk about meanness, this is characterized by the symptom of cruelty, where the people, they have a tendency to want to commit violence against other people. They are very aggressive against others. Yes.
No wonder they experience the most massive, cruel violence that human beings can do to other human beings. So, as we often say, these are normal reactions to abnormal situations. So, and what I like very much in what you say is that your work is some kind of peace building, because you go from the individual to society, and this is like amazing. And what coming to your colleague Rachel, so what you are doing is more like prevention, because you work with the younger generations that did not experience the genocide themselves, but their family members, their friends, and all their social surroundings. So they are affected as well. So, Thérése, do you want to continue, or Rachel, do you want to say something at that point? Or Thérése, you want to continue first?
Yes, I want to continue, because about yes, I would like to continue to show you the what I did as research. Yes, beside my contribution in MHDF, and I participated, I conducted research in 2008, and I found how family members suffer a lot from the consequences of trauma they experienced. And spouses and partner, they suffer a lot from the trauma they experienced in the past, and from family violence, what we consider as the consequences of what we experienced here in Rwanda. And the spouses are affected by the consequences at 65%. They suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. And the children, their offsprings, they suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder at 46%. This is the result from the findings from my research I conducted in 2018, for seeing what are the consequences of trauma here in Rwanda. And
almost almost 25 years later. So, that's interesting that the percentages are still so high.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when I decided to start this Mental Health Dignity Foundation as organization, yes, I realized the fundings from the research of Ministry of Health and the World Mental Health Organization conducted in 2008, and they showed the prevalence of post-traumatic stress disorder in Rwandan population was 28.54%, and women are more affected rather than men. And I realized we need to work on it. That's why I created this organization in order to contribute in the mental health care and also for peace building, because these mental disorders or psychological suffering come from violence among human beings. And I decided to contribute to to heal, to contribute in the healing, and also to contribute to prevent building the relationship, health relationship, rather than a health relationship, because we experienced a lot related to that. And now I decided also to through different projects, yes, in the community, I help Rwandan people to work on their interpersonal conflict. Yes, so I help them to manage them. I teach them how to resolve a problem in a peaceful way, how to resolve conflict, and I work with family members to work on their conflict and teach young people how to overcome conflict in a peaceful way. We need in Rwandan conflict, in a Rwandan context, we need those skills for problem solving and communicating in a good way, non-violently. Yes, and I use 4 different projects I implement in MHDF is in order to improve that relationship, to improve the relationship among Rwandan, among neighbor, family members. Yes, being aware about the effect of what we experience. And I work with a student at secondary school, the young generation, in order to prevent transgenerational trauma, helping them to be aware how they can take care, how they can promote self-care among them. And each year I organize World Mental Health Day celebration from 2014 in order to give information to Rwandan people, and they can start to take care of themselves after they can think about neighbor and family members. And I train through another project, I train my colleague, clinical psychologist. Now I have 577 clinical psychologists. They work all over the country in a private, in the public institution where they contribute. They offer the same services I offer in the Mental Health Dignity Foundation, because I train them how to give psychoeducation, how to diagnose, recognize which kind of mental disorder my clients suffer from, and how to do trauma map to identify those traumatic events client experienced, and conducting psychotherapy, and conducting evaluation, how to teach single client how to help themselves, and how to help community in general, in a group, or participating in a different activity here in Rwanda. For example, during Umuganda, we offer those information about mental health to invite Rwandan to take care of themselves in order to improve our health relationship. Yes, and for implementing all those projects, we experiencing different challenges related to have material, to have the sufficient budget for implementing mental health project, and for renting the room where we work, where we receive a single client, couple members, where we we facilitate group therapy and so on. Yes, and
really amazing. It's really amazing what you can provide.
Yes, and we also offer or we contribute in advocating, because sometimes each the intervention or support for survivors or for other single clients is not limited to psychological and social support. Sometimes we meet the case which are beyond of beyond of our capacity. For example, the homeless people, people who need to improve their economic aspect. Sometimes we work with other professionals and we can advocate for them. We write a report, we explain the case of our client, and we advocate for them. That's why we have different achievement, survivors of genocide who received the house, who received who are implementing the project of banana plantation, stove project. We were supported by German, especially Wolfgang Borgastara, Prof. Dr. Ingo. They supported us to improve the life of our client, and we are proud of them, and we are proud of our achievement, and we are continuing to inform Rwandan how to take care of themselves and so on. Thank you very much.
It's just so wonderful. It's just so wonderful. So let's come to you, Rachel, because you are doing this very, very important work with the younger generations. And as I just said some minutes ago, it's a work of prevention, in my view, I think, because it's also part to prevent that such violence may arise again. So please tell us. So I see that parallelly there are questions coming in, so I won't ignore them. I just will put them a little later after Rachel has given her input, and then we will come to the questions.
Thank you very much, dear Bianca. My name is Mutuyemariya Uwujuje, and I'm a clinical psychologist from Mental Health Dignity Foundation as well. So what I'm about to present or share with you is the intergenerational legacy of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, but I will talk about it as a person who was born in the aftermath of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. But yet I'm a clinical psychologist, so you kind of hear that there is something that we share in common as professionals, but there are things that we do not share because I was born after the tragic past of our country, but then as a psychotherapist already shared with you, she know more than I, because she is older and that experience, she really does know more about that. The first thing at the beginning that I put in front is that mental health is a universal human right. That's the thing that comes in my head almost all the time. So all of what I do, I'm guided by that. And I would like to share with you my personal experience regarding the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. How was I aware of what happened, yet I was not there at that time? What I can share with you is that I was able to be aware of what happened, the tragic past of my country, through different ways. Yes, I was aware of that at a young age. Yes, at a young age. And it was all around. I just learned it from my parents. They talked about it at school, in primary and secondary, and in 1994 genocide commemoration periods, because in our country, we do commemorate every year the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. So from a young age, I was aware of what happened through the commemoration. That's one way. And the other one was that at high school, I had an opportunity to be trained by Mental Health Dignity Foundation earlier. So then I played part in the intervention during the commemoration. I was a part of mental health club, and I was a club representative at that time. I studied high school at Groupe Scolaire Mère du Verbe Kibeho. And there I was a club representative, mental health club representative. So then I took part in the intervention during the commemorations. And I also used to read a lot of papers, read a lot of documents, books related to the Rwanda's horrible past, and different articles and books and journals which talk about what happened in my country. So then I was able to know exactly what happened. And the other thing, the other way, the last but not the least, was through the trainings I received from Mental Health Dignity Foundation. As I shared with you, I was able to be trained from a young age, from 2014 when I was still in high school. And at that time, we were trained on different topics, including conflicts, violence, trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, and different other ways to support people. So you cannot go away from the tragic past of the country, because yet we're supporting people basing on what happened, because most of them have crises due to what happened, either the youth for the transgenerational problem, or parents for what they lived themselves. So then at that way, you cannot go away from that. You have to know what happened. There's no way out. So you have to know what happened. Then the other thing is that I share with you also about my personal experience, is that in secondary school, it was my first time to see dead body. I was able to see a dead body like in a memorial site, and it was really horrible. I had read at that time. I was scared, I was little, and I felt uncomfortable and overwhelmed. And I even heard on TV what happened in some areas of Rwanda during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, how they smashed children on walls and how they did horrible things to women. And I was like, how can a person do that to another? I couldn't hear exactly what happened. I was overwhelmed by what I heard and what I listened to, what I saw, either on TV, on radio, in testimonies of some of the survivors when we were in a commemoration period. It was really horrible, and it was hard for me to understand what happened. But yeah, that's what happened. Yeah. And in my peers, they also experienced the same problem, because during the commemoration, I remember there are some young people that I helped. Example of a young girl whom I approached. She was weeping and overwhelmed by negative emotions after hearing how Tutsis were brutally killed during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. And I listened to her actively, and I helped her because I had that opportunity to be trained by Mental Health Dignity Foundation. So I had techniques. I had ways to relax and get over that negative emotion. So I helped her at that time. And some of my colleagues whom we studied together also shared some cases of what they experienced at their high schools, how it was really hard. And because I knew some techniques that they can use to calm down, then I supported them. So after all of that, I did not just sit still and watch everything passing by and then sit and then do nothing. No, I just thought that, hey, what can I do as a young generation? Though I did not experience it, live it, the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, I mean, but I can still do something to prevent the transgenerational trauma. I have to start myself to be aware and prepare myself so that I can serve my community as well. So I would like to share with you a category of 6 things that I did to tackle the challenges faced as a child who was born in the aftermath of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. The first thing that I did was to join the mental health club. As a club representative in high school, I had trainings from Mental Health Dignity Foundation. Thanks to it, I participated in different trainings, for instance, the interconnection between conflict and trauma. through the project that was named the Prevention of Transgenerational Trauma and the Promotion of Self-Care for Rwandan Youth. I also received so many other trainings regarding the nonviolent communication
And this was
so many
part,
other.
and that was part of the school program. So this mental health club that was located in your school, or how did it work?
Yeah,
Nice.
that was the mental health club that was located at my high school where I studied at Groupe Scolaire Mère du Verbe Kibero. It's where I knew for the first time about mental health because I was trained. You see, I was trained. I had an opportunity to know that mental health exists. At my young age, I had 14 years at that time in 2014, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And this is something that I'm concerned about. It do not like put somebody aside, segregate people from others. No, mental health is everybody is concerned. When we talk about mental health, everybody is concerned. So I felt really welcomed and
This is a model the world can learn from Rwanda, having mental health clubs at schools, at high schools. That is a lesson for the world.
Yes, of course it is, Bianca. And then I did not just sit down because I was a club representative. I took part in different activities. I just took it as my own because I wanted to serve my community, of course, starting with supporting my own mental health, but then serving my community. I played a role in establishment of centers for listening in other schools, starting by mine at that time. And I also organized role plays at each World Mental Health Day celebration each year. I had to organize with my team a role play to show to other students how mental health is a concern to all of us, how it does exist, because so many people out here are not aware that it even exists. So I just took part to help people to be aware of that. And I also supported them in commemoration. And then I also took part in the establishment of other youth clubs, mental health youth clubs in other schools. And that was the first category of what I did to tackle those intergenerational legacies of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. The second thing I did was to establish what is called the Class Parler Initiative as a clinical psychologist. You see, after knowing about mental health in high school, I was interested. I wanted to join mental health at university. And then I was like, what kind of a domain can I choose so that I can serve my community, like related to mental health issues? And then, boom, I saw that there's clinical psychology. But because the psychotherapist for mental health Dignity Foundation also is a clinical psychologist, I knew before that clinical psychology exists at University of Rwanda. So then I chose it and the government accepted. It was like, whoa, I was super thrilled because I was ready to serve my community. I was really loving that. And then after reaching the university, I had the time to support my fellow clinical psychologists because most of them did not know what to do as a clinical psychologist. Yet I was aware before of what could be done. I had an opportunity to be trained by Mental Health Dignity Foundation on different things regarding the psychodiagnosis, screening of different disorders, PTSD, anxiety, depression, traumatic grief, antisocial behavior, low self-esteem, suicidal ideation, and so forth. And I had an opportunity to be trained in nonviolent communication, on eye movement desensitization, reprocessing approach, relaxation exercises such as the progressive muscle relaxation, labyrinth, fulfill technique, mandala, breathworks, and so many other techniques. I had a bunch of them. And then I was like, well, I have to share it with my colleagues. And they were really friendly. They just accepted. And then I started what is called the Class Parler Initiative to support my fellow or colleagues at university, and then extend it to the community as well, because we had to go at internships, where we go at, in hospitals, where we go in communities. So from the knowledge I spread from Mental Health Dignity Foundation that I got there, it was easily spread into the community as well, you see. And then considering all of that trainings that I participated in and having already been aware of the prevalence of mental disorders in Rwandan community, the psychotherapist already told you that about 30% of Rwandans were PTSD sufferers, and 46 of the children from families with domestic violence had PTSD. That was really horrible. From this, I was like, I have to do something. And then I established this initiative to tackle the legacies of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in young people. And most of those legacies are conflicts and violence in families, transgenerational trauma, early pregnancies in young people, drug use, anxiety, depression, and so many other different mental disorders, which are really turning apart different young people. So I just played that role to support clinical psychologists, as I was one, so that we can support our community with a bunch of techniques, with a bunch of something to do, without just sitting there and doing nothing. And so then, yeah, I just wanted to be equipped with knowledge and capacity to handle all of those legacies. And we were able to share together different topics. We looked about the principles, ethical principles of professional. We looked about mental health psychoeducation. I looked into some people may wonder, like, what about mental health psychoeducation? What do you do? We usually use different theories of researchers, starting with the World Health Organization, like kind of protocol for mental health, and then we translate all of the documents from reliable researchers, and then we transmit it to the community. We support people to be aware. Most of the people are not aware even of the definition of mental health according to WHO, World Health Organization. So we support people starting from scratch, because some of the people are not even aware of anything. So we need to do that, and we really do it. And the category 3 of what I do so quickly is that I myself play part in mental health awareness in people down there, in schools, in public services, in parishes, in primary school. I go there myself and support people on mental health campaigns on social media, either WhatsApp, either X, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn. I go everywhere to support people, to be aware of mental health. And yeah, and then until now, I was able to reach 5,749 people. Yeah, it's like
Impressive.
interclinical psychology was really good, and I'm thrilled for that. And the category 4, just being quick, category 4, what I did is that I also am involved in treatment. I also do treatment. And so far, I was able to help group therapies using a peace circle technique, where I supported 5 groups composed of 69 people, and individual therapies of I have 25 clients until now, you see. And a category 5 of what I did is the capacity building for professionals. Currently, in Mental Health Dignity Foundation, we have a platform of 577 clinical psychologists all over the country whom we work with. So I play a part in self-care sessions as one of the things that we do. We do train them, capacity building, but then self-care is also incorporated. So I participate in that as well. So lastly, the last but not the least category of what I do to tackle the legacies of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi is research. Because practice is good, but then you have to do research to do visibility, to showcase what is going on in the community, so that things or some policies can be done and implemented to tackle some of the challenges that the community is facing. So I did a research about the factors of vicarious trauma among clinical psychologists in Rwanda. So the following were the findings. I had 3 findings. The first one was that the traumatizing working environment is the most likely influencing vicarious trauma among them. And secondly is that clinical psychologists with average burnout were found with a portion of 21.9%, and those with vicarious trauma were found with 30%. And the whole sample were 160 participants. And lastly, we observed that the clinical supervision has decreased vicarious trauma among those who profited it. But for those who did not use it, like the more they do not use or explore clinical supervision, the more vicarious trauma increase. So my wish is conclusively, my wish is I wish that clinical psychologists in Rwanda may be supported to get more trainings on different psychological techniques that they can use to serve the community, to serve their client. And I also wish that parents who have mental disorders in Rwandan community can be treated in order to prevent the transgenerational mental disorders among young generation. Currently, we have more than 65% of young people who were born in the aftermath of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. So that percentage is huge. So something needs to be done on that. Thank you very much.
I thank you both so much. So your work is really impressive and a role model. So I hope you will get a lot of opportunities to present your work internationally. And all the findings that you were talking about, I just want to tell the audience that both have very, very good presentations with their findings. And if you are interested in receiving them, then you can write me an email and then I can send you these presentations. It's worthwhile. You can learn a lot from that. So I have some questions to you from the audience that I will read to you now. Okay, so the first guest is asking, when you talk about psychotherapy, do you do storytelling in clans? Do you use art? Psychotherapy is the 50-minute hour in my country, which may not be relevant in other cultures or families. I love you using groups and not just individuals. Love imagery, ideas, and exercises. The same person, what are the most useful tools you use for psychoeducational support? Healing early in Rwanda happened in the trials of forgiveness, where the perpetrator had to admit in front of those they victimized what they did and listen to testimonial of family of how they affected them. I think he's talking of the Gacaca trials here. So what would you like to say to these questions and comments?
Thank you very much, because this is composed by many questions at the same time. But
if I shall repeat,
general,
tell me.
Yes, in general, what I can say, yes, the approach we use or method we use for overcoming the consequences of trauma, yes, we mix different approaches, group and individual case, because sometimes when I started in 2012, I started by using group therapy, where I used the peace circle, circle of hope, but at the end, we realized how is it very important to work with a single client, because they mentioned their personal experience, which is not shared in a group. And from that time in 2017 is where I started to offer single psychotherapy. In 2012, I started by group, but in 2017, we realized it's very important to work with individual case, because when you observe, normally each individual is unique. And it's very important to work on the experience, the personal experience of a client. And after, you can join them, put them together with other. Yes, I prefer now I prefer individual therapy rather than group, because human is unique. Yes, it is what I learned from my journey of 12 years of experience until now. And yes, and why also I emphasize for individual therapy is because with dealing with the consequences of genocide against Tutsi, many Rwandans are affected by genocide in different ways. When you work with survivors of genocide against Tutsi, yes, you work on traumatic experience, depend on their experience. But when you work with perpetrators, because I have now the case of perpetrators who ask support, psychological support, and when you work with them, it's totally different with the case of survivors. Yes, that's why I emphasize individual therapy is very important to handle or to work on personal experience in order to promote mental well-being for each cases or each individual. And during also, because of what we are sharing now, we are connecting with the experience of genocide. Yes, there is also the aspect of gacaca. Gacaca and is a, yes, it's a result, is a, I can say, is the consequences, yes, which has a positive aspect, or it depends on individual. When I receive individual case, it helps me. We take time to work on the consequences, or the positive or negative, according to the experience of my client. And at the end is confidential, without creating other conflict in the community. Because sometimes what I observed from the consequences from genocide, sometimes when you are in a group, you can create other conflict without knowing, because we experience differently that traumatic event. Yes, I continue to emphasize it because I observed it. But the challenge we have is related to budget for accompanying individual case, because it can take, for example, if I consider the case I accompanied, a survivor of genocide against Tutsi, I accompanied, is between, when I accompany a case, it can, we can work together. I can conduct or facilitating therapeutic session between 20 therapeutic session and 30 therapeutic session. It takes time because of many traumatic experience. Is what I observed, like differences when you compare clinical psychologists from Rwanda and the psychologists from outside. Here, the client experienced many traumatic experience, and it asks us to work on during many therapeutic sessions. Yes, yes. When I'm accompanying individual case or a single client, I use mainly to work on those traumatic events, and I invite my client to contribute to their healing using relaxation exercise in order to heal their cognition, to heal their emotion, to heal their body, to heal their behaviors. Yes, I prefer relaxation exercise for helping, giving tools to our client to learn how they can help themselves without us, without me, without other psychological stuff. Yes, yes, they need to hit themselves. And what else I can say is yes, we use to draw. We draw about because through AMDR we use to draw those traumatic experience and talking about that, because it's necessary, because psychotherapy, we treat by communication. We use communication to treat. You can avoid to communicate. And then sometimes I can choose also for narrative exposure therapy for working on those traumatic events. And at the end, I can have a report, the document of all story, the whole story of a client, and I give the book to my client. This is another benefit. They can have a book of their journey of life, starting by good event and working on bad event. And at the end, this is my book. Yes, I put all those traumatic events in this book, not in my brain. Yes. And we relax our brain. I think is what I can say about this question.
Thank you, Thérése. So, Rachel, you wanted to add something to that?
Your
micro?
What the psychotherapist said is full of explanation, detailed explanations.
Great, perfect. Okay, so then I move on to a next question. Okay, there are various questions, but around a similar topic and a little sensitive. It's a bit hard to ask about it, but is it true that in some Tutsi communities, a female rape survivor was isolated just because she was impregnated by a genocide perpetrator? That's the first question. Do you want me to ask the others as well, or do you want to answer one by one?
I think for this case, I don't know if I understood well. If the survivors who experience the rape, if they are discriminated because of
if they were isolated because
isolated.
Yes, isolated because she was impregnated by a genocide perpetrator.
And I need to ask another question: who isolate them? Because I don't know what.
So as I understand, the question is what if the case was like a woman, a Tutsi woman, was raped by a genocidaire, and then because of that isolated by the Tutsi community. That's how I understand it.
This is an understandable question now. Yes, the community here in Rwanda, first of all, we are lucky now, we are all Rwandan, because this segregation related to ethnic group destroyed our country, and we are experiencing now the consequences of what we experienced. Yes, observing the case of discrimination, I can call it. Yes, it can happen, but we need to learn individual case by case. I can't say in general it's the same, but considering the symptoms of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, Rwandan people who are affected, who witnessed the genocide, who experienced the genocide, some of them, they can demonstrate, they can manifest those signs of antisocial behaviors. For us as a clinical psychologist, we consider those manifestations like a sign client or community members show us they need to be understood, to be accompanied because of what they experienced. Those are the result of what we experienced. We suffered, people suffered psychologically, and at the end they can violate, they can have those sign of antisocial behaviors. But in general, in the Rwandan community, we are improving our health relationship. We know what we experienced affected a lot many Rwandan. Until now, I am observing through my therapeutic work, I work on it. That's why I gave permission myself to identify, to do, to evaluate which kind of psychological disorders you suffer from. And I touch on the sign, the symptom. Yes, we have those cases, and considering the research, I learned from the research how this traumatic experience we experience the genocide will affect us for different generation. This is yes, it happened. It can be happened, and we saw the case, but we are trying to improve our good relationship among Rwandan, and here contributing to the healing journey in order to collaborate, to live together, because they didn't decide to be there.
That is so good to hear, because I remember very well, so shortly after the genocide, so when all the legal procedures began, or the work on the mental health, we often could hear from Rwandan survivors when it was about living together with the perpetrators, we have no choice. Yeah, we heard that very, very, very often, and that sounded like we have no choice. We have to deal with the perpetrators because there's no other way. So from what you are telling now, I hope that I'm right, that has been overcome. So yes, did I get you right there at that point? That would be wonderful. That would be a wonderful success for the society.
Yes, we are working on it. Until now, I realize that's why I realized those consequences. The traumatic event we experienced, genocide against Tutsi here in Rwanda, affected a lot mental health of Rwandan.
Yeah.
And I decided to introduce myself in 2012. This component, these new skills, how we can help ourselves and how we can think about helping others. Because you can't give what you haven't. People suffer a lot. And we didn't participate in the hearing of all people. We are continuing to contribute. And we invited Rwandan also to be aware, to learn more and to contribute to their healing. Yes. That's why sometimes now the perpetrators are aware, survivors of genocide are aware, they come for seeking the help, psychological support. I was surprised to see perpetrators who ask for support. Yes, I have the case of perpetrators, they come and we accompany them. Sometimes survivors invite them, or perpetrators, they recognize we suffer a lot from what we did during genocide against Tutsi, and we need your support. They come and I accompany individual case, perpetrator individually, supervisor individual, survivors individually, and at the end, because they choose to improve their relationship, we put them together, and they can work on their relationship without informing the other people around. They are with me only in my office, and we are working. Perpetrator ask forgiveness. I observe those cases, and they ask forgiveness because what I committed was not good, and I'm ready to improve our relationship, working together. We need to see our children together. And I saw those cases. I have the case among my clients like that. And I have the case of survivors who forgave the above 20 perpetrators after receiving therapeutic work. And she communicated with me during the level of evaluation. Until now, I forget 20 perpetrators, because what I recognize, we need to heal, we need to experience, to have a mental well-being. Yes, and that mental health is not only for me, and I recognize my neighbor also need to heal, because what we experienced affected us. Yes, it's their testimony, their success story, sometimes I'm surprised to hear that.
Yes, I imagine. Yes.
Because sometimes I contribute to the unity and the reconciliation without knowing. My role was to contribute to promote the mental well-being of my client, individual client. But now it became for family and the community. This is the result I didn't thought, I didn't think, I didn't plan. And sometimes I have those success story and I feel okay and I feel proud. I say,
Yeah,
yes.
you can be proud. You can be proud. But I still have the question also to you, Rachel, concerning the younger generations, because here in Europe we discuss about Rwanda in a very biased way. So perhaps, as I told you also when we met before, that the government in Kigali is very much criticized internationally. And so there's also this external threat in Eastern Congo, where there are still radical militias fighting with the objective to overthrow the government in Kigali and so on. So how present is the fear in the Rwandan society that these guys will one day perhaps repeat this genocide?
Thank you, Bianca, for a good question. On my side, as I see it, as a younger generation and also as a clinical psychologist, I do not have fear. I do not have fear. Why? Because of three things. The first thing is that our government foster unity and reconciliation among all of us folks of Rwanda. That's the first thing. The second thing, they are implementing different policies in place to support the peace building in our communities. All that they're looking for is to support people to live peacefully with each other. We have a good government. I'm thankful for that. I'm glad for that. The reason why in 1994 that thing happened, the outrageous event that they passed through happened, is because of the bad government at that time. We are lucky as the young generation, we have a good government. I can see that because I benefited that and I'm a good fruit for that.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And lastly, I think very much government, as I was saying, about different policies and different programs that were established to tackle the genocide ideology in people. One of the things that they did was to establish clinical psychology as a program at university. You see, supporting people because they were aware that so many people sat there in Rwanda were having different mental disorders. And they sat aside and so, okay, what can we do on that? We have to establish clinical psychology program at university to grow there so many professionals who are able, who are capable to heal the community. Because as you know, if we kind of remember what WHO said about mental health is a state of well-being in which individuals are able to realize their potentials, can be able to cope with normal stresses of life, can be able to work productively and fruitfully, and they're able to develop themselves as well as the community. If you do not have mental well-being, how are you supposed to support the community? So the government thought wisely and they said, we have to establish that program because having clinical psychologists in place, something better that we can do to support our community. So here we are as fruits of that program. So it's really good because we're doing something, starting by Mental Health Dignity Foundation and even other organizations because we're not alone. And we're even supported by our government of Rwanda. There's several things that we're doing on both sides, supporting the survivors of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis, ex-perpetrators who are being released from sentenced from prison, and even the generation after. there's so many programs that have been established in our country to support all of those people who have different backgrounds, who have different histories. So it kind of showed me as an individual that I do not really, it anchor that we must not have fear of another genocide because we're on the right path.
And we're with you on that. So thank you so much for all that. I have a last question to you. Because of all your experience you described, and you do it also for many, many years now. So what would you say after the work of the ICTR, so the UN Tribunal, after the Gacaca trials, after your work in the mental health area, what would you say? Does justice heal?
Yes, thank you very much. I think what I can say is in our Rwandan community, we need to continue to promote mental well-being at for everyone, because as human beings, we are all concerned by mental health. Our brain needs to function in a good way, but for working for the work of our brain need to be supported by the life we experiencing. It means we need to continue to improve our relationship in a good ways, and it will improve our way of thinking positively, and how it will improve we will demonstrate, we will manifest the positive emotions. Yes, and our body will be in a good state. We will feel good, we will feel relaxed, and we will behave in good ways. And promoting that relationship will help us to continue to overcome the consequences of all those, the consequences of genocide against Tutsi. And we will learn from different programs established here in Rwanda to deal with the consequences. Like Gacaca was the one of the, I consider it like medication for improving our relationship, because recognizing or giving time to perpetrators of genocide against Tutsi to recognize, to ask, to do introspection and ask forgiveness. Yes, and to do punishment to some who refused to recognize their role, and give a time to survivors to express what they think, what they experienced, to learn from what happened to their family members, and putting all those together, we create a new community. Because putting the past, yes, behind us, not to forget, using the past for having the energy for experiencing now, and also thinking to the future, to the next generation, our young children, because they will learn from us how my parent managed the past, how my parent managed the problem, the conflict with neighbors. They will learn from us. And the Gacaca, yes, contributed a lot. People, they got a time to show their responsibility and to ask forgiveness, and also to receive again in the community of human being in Rwandan, and starting again the life, yes, as a united people. That's why I liked how we became all Rwandan, not to be divided, not to be divided in those three groups. Because we are human beings, we didn't select which group. I can go.
Absolutely right.
Yes, you in this group of another. Is it the history, and how from the history we can learn from it for constructing the future. Yes, parent, we have the task to show our children how we manage the case, and that they will continue to go through, to improve, to restore relationship among Rwandan without discrimination, without yes, and the treating who are sick mentally. Yes, I wish this, because sometimes the relationship is challenged by mental disorders people are suffering now. Yes, I think your contribution is very important, because many people, they could learn from this exchange, this discussion organized by your organization and your group of organization. It was not easy to to memorize the term. Yes, but I know you informed us you are in a group of different organizations for preventing and for contributing to the healing. This is the one of activity which is very important to contribute in the healing journey. We know people, they are suffering from what they experienced here in Rwanda, and I think outside also they can experience other traumatic event. They need to be aware and take care of themselves and contribute to the unity, peace building, mental health for care for Rwandan who are inside of the country, and for the Rwandan who are outside, because we are one. We are united. We chose to be united and to contribute to the reconciliation. One of the activity of reconciliation being healing. Contribute to the healing, your healing, and to the healing of your community members. Yes, is what I can say. Thank you.
So good. Rachel, what did you say? Do justice here?
On my side, you talked about Gachacha. You brought up Gachacha, and I would like to say something about that. What makes Gachacha special than any other judgment or justice strategy is that in Rwanda, in the first place, Gachacha's goal was, apart from sentencing perpetrators, its first or main goal was to foster the unity and reconciliation among Rwandans. And after seeing that some of the perpetrators were able to confess and some of them were sentenced, survivors were able to be integrated again in the society and aim again at developing themselves. And that is where mental health comes in. Because coming down, settling down, and then thinking about development again, that's a great sign of mental well-being. And in our community, it's really observable that both all of those people, like normally on top of that, usually people, when they commit crimes, like currently how it is in Rwanda, when people commit crime, they are sentenced as usual, as any other justice strategy. But then we in Rwanda, we chose unity and reconciliation. And that is what is prompting us all over the world as Rwandans. And we love that so much currently, starting from young generation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So absolutely amazing. Thérése, Rachel, it was a pleasure to discuss these topics with you. And I hope that one day I can come to Rwanda to see you in person and to hug you and to further discuss with you.
Welcome.
So thank you so much. Thank you to the audience for listening and for putting good questions. And yeah, I hope to see you at our further webinars that we are organizing. And I hope we keep in touch. And so I wish you a wonderful evening. And yeah, so we hear from each other quite soon. I promise.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Have a wonderful evening, and thank you for all.
Thank
you very much.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.